What's up, everybody? How we doing? It is very late, obviously, but we finally made it. So,
We're
Thomas,
here.
I apologize. That was my fault. I mean, somewhat uncontrollables with the
Not a
traffic and
problem.
the accident. I did mention it in the comments, and shout out to everybody in the chat, hanging out and waiting on the delay. Yes, I probably would have been late, but only like a couple minutes, not like 15, 20 minutes here. But nonetheless, better late than never. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And listen, you should have thrown in there. You're coming from working out. You're at the gym pumping iron, makes you sound fit and swole and buff. I would have led with that, but either way, we're here. It doesn't matter, right?
That's
We're talking
fair.
trade deadline, Eagle injury stuff. Is kind of interesting today. And anything else people in the chat want to go ahead and do? I was hanging out in my chat. People were asking me questions. I was answering questions, and a lot of people are still hanging out. So drop a like button, ask away, and we'll get started on the show tonight. As Josh, the NFL trade deadline is 2 weeks away, a little less than 2 weeks. It's November 5th. There's something else happening that day that seems maybe less important than the Eagles trade deadline stuff, but in case you're wondering exactly what day it is. But there's a lot of BS going on around the National Football League right now. A lot of trade
Hmm.
rumors on Twitter that are not necessarily true, or at least are not true and not tied to Philadelphia.
Yes, quite a bit, and I don't know
A
where
lot.
actually we want to start on that one because there are so many rumors and speculation.
Sure.
We will get to a lot of the comments or the questions in the chat, obviously as well. But I mean,
Cooper
the
Kupp?
the automatic. I was going to say the automatic that's kind of been dispelled for the most part. I mean, what we've seen, but yes, Cooper Kupp got thrown in there because the Eagles are the very easy team to basically any blockbuster trade. I mean, we were talking about this last
Yeah.
night in my live stream, but it was like obviously when there is a superstar player or any player of any type of recognition, just go ahead and insert the Eagles because Howie Roseman is going to call. That does not mean that there's legit interest in there, but it is, hey, you know what? At the very least, you could get market intel, right? Like if Howie
Sure.
is legitimately like, you know what,
Sure.
look, it's not going to make financial sense. There's no way we can do it. Insert whoever you want to. Let's say, for example, this is Cooper Kupp. He probably is still, it doesn't hurt to make a call, talk to the GM, see what the
Yeah.
asking price is. Yeah, maybe nothing's impossible, but more so to get a gauge on, all right, what's the market look like? Is there any change up? Is there anything odd going on here? It just gives you some extra intel. But, as soon as some people say that, then naturally you have some other comments and thoughts and everything that goes along those lines. But Cooper Kupp, I mean, it's a pipe dream. Come on.
I did a deep dive into this earlier today to try to figure out where the actual source came from. And I don't know if you found who exactly it was. I found ML Football as the only person who actually linked
Yeah.
Philadelphia to Cooper Kupp, which basically means it's not true, guys. Like that, ML Football is one of those accounts on Twitter. It's not like Dove Kleiman where he just steals other people's stuff. He creates his own things. No one knows who he is. No one knows if he actually has sources or not. And more likely than not, he's probably not accurate. And what he does a lot of is he'll say, there are reports that Cooper Kupp wants to be traded, which is true, right? We heard that from Dana Rossini, who I think is one of the best, most plugged-in NFL insiders, former ESPN, now works for The Athletic. So
Hmm.
he says, trade rumor, and then he says teams reportedly interested, Chiefs, Eagles, Saints, Bears, whatever the teams are, but doesn't cite anything. So there is no actual sourcing of Cooper Kupp going to Philadelphia. And the real nail in the coffin to all of this, Josh, is not the fact you already gave up a third for Jahan Dotson, which should be the nail in the coffin. It's the fact that Kansas City wanted Cooper Kupp, according to Dana Rossini, and what basically failed was the fact that they wanted a second-round draft pick, way too high for the aging Cooper Kupp, and they
Hmm.
wanted, at least the Rams, the team to acquire Cooper Kupp to eat a lot of his dead cap money, and he has a ton of it, and Philadelphia is not going to do that. And so, right off the bat, Cooper Kupp, for those wondering, it's completely dead. So if you see any YouTube headlines saying Eagles signing Cooper Kupp, you can know that it's totally made up and completely clickbait, as a lot of people like to do. So that one is
No,
completely dead. That one's completely dead. Out of
never.
all the different names that are being thrown out there, that one is 1,000,000% not going to happen. It would never happen in a million years. If they can't get Dotson targets, Josh, why would they give Cooper Kupp targets? Like, it just doesn't make sense from a standpoint offensively, money-wise, draft pick-wise, and even for the Rams.
Yeah, you're right. It does not at all. But yet, it's
Got a
this is
clickbait.
this it is, and this is going to be the continual theme, and everybody understands that. We get it, but to a certain point, it's like, okay, we still have some time. We got almost 2 weeks left
A lot
before
of
the
time.
trade deadline, and it's like, all right, hey, let's temper expectations maybe a little bit. Let's be somewhat realistic, but it is difficult, especially this time because it's like, all right. if we bring up any name, you insert any type of superstar, then automatically go, whoa, hang on,
Yeah.
there may be
Yeah.
something to it. If there's going to be a move, I mean, still, blockbuster wise, I don't think that's going to happen. But if you
No.
were to make any sort of bigger trade, it would have to be for a pass rusher, right? Like
Sure.
if Howie Roseman were to go out there and shock the world, so to speak, why on earth is he going and getting a wide receiver? It doesn't make sense. Now, if he were to go get a pass rusher, it would signify, all right, even less belief in Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith, who have been showing better things the last couple weeks, but also
Yeah.
like, yeah, you know what? Let's get a little bit more ammunition. Let's try to make this thing happen. But I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you give up for Myles Garrett? Like, what makes sense for this team at all if you're going to give up
There
for
was
Myles Garrett?
there was an ESPN reporter. I talked about this yesterday and explained how impossible it is. 2 first-round draft picks, multiple second-round draft picks, and probably a player is the reported asking price for Myles Garrett, which seems fair. I mean, come on, how many times does Myles
But it's
Garrett show up in the draft?
ridiculous.
It's insane. It's too much. And the main problem for Philadelphia with the whole Myles Garrett situation, Josh, is what's happened the past 2 weeks. 13 sacks in 2 weeks. I know it's the Browns and it's the Giants. It's all over my comment section. If the Eagles go out and put it to the Cincinnati Bengals, who we will talk about here in just a couple of minutes, and they get multiple sacks of Joe Burrow, and Jalen Carter is balling out, and Nolan Smith is looking fantastic the past couple of weeks. Bryce Huff suddenly knows how to get pressures, has a solo sack now. He was great in the Giants game. It makes the whole idea of needing to sell and mortgage your entire future draft capital-wise for a guy like Myles Garrett basically nullified. And I think the past 2 weeks have been eye-opening to a lot of us, myself included, who was very hard on Vic Fangio the first 5 weeks of the NFL season. And suddenly it's like, we're a top 10 defense. We're like 7th overall. Like, we got 13 sacks the past 2 weeks. They have not scored a touchdown in 2 weeks against us. If they do it against Cincinnati, or even look, we always say middle of the pack defense, they give up 20 to Joe Burrow in a victory and get an interception and 4 sacks. The idea you need to mortgage your future for Myles Garrett doesn't make sense. Maxx Crosby, I see that name being thrown around a lot. Listen, I would love Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby was on someone else's podcast yesterday saying he doesn't want to be traded. Devontae Adams went on Kay Adams' podcast and said he highly doubts Maxx Crosby gets traded. Crosby's not going to get moved. He seems to be a Raider for life. If he goes anywhere, Josh, it's going to be Detroit because that's his hometown. Crosby and Garrett are mega pipe dreams. They're a lot more realistic than Cooper Kupp, but like a 1% chance at this point. It's a 1% chance you were to go ahead and get either of those players.
Right. I totally agree. And so does Bald Eagle, by the way, the super chat for the 2 there. Appreciate that. Says we are not getting Garrett. And then also mentioned the Kupp would be a waste, which, we can make the argument of however you want to, but absolutely because you traded for Jahan Dotson. Looking back at it, there's a little bit of longevity because of the contract and all the other stuff there, but you see some of the other contracts that these other receivers have gotten or the trade offers that the other receivers have taken to acquire them. And it's like, okay, well, it's not the greatest, the trade was not great to begin with. And then you see some of these other guys and you're like, okay, it doesn't give me a great feeling, but regardless, you aren't using the talent there. You aren't using him for anything. So, you don't need another mouth to feed, another guy who's like, well, is Jalen actually going to throw to him? Probably not, because it's already hard enough to distribute as it is, or he doesn't look in that direction. Is it a better player? Sure. But like, there's only so many that we can have here. And so I don't know. We look at the identity of the team and it's just hard to envision. By the way, I was going to give a shout out here to, let's see, where was that one? Rocksteady. What's up? Says, what's up, Josh? Let's see if I finally get acknowledged. There you go. You're getting acknowledged as a member. So I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone in the chat. If you've not already, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe. I'm just going to tease this. I'm not going to say officially, but Thomas and I have a very exciting giveaway coming up soon. So stay tuned for that.
It's pretty exciting.
Say what it is. It is pretty cool.
Cheap.
It is not cheap.
Pretty expensive.
But yes, just stay tuned. Obviously, all the OGs, if you're watching the regular videos, don't worry, you're not going to miss it. It will be mentioned probably multiple times.
A lot.
But that's all I'm going to say for that. So as we move on, though, because you mentioned, Cincinnati game, everything going there. First, we probably should share the official injury report.
Interesting today, yes.
It was interesting. Didn't expect a couple of these names. I mean, we had seen that Zack Baun had left the game. It was questionable to return with the shoulder injury. You never know exactly, obviously, coming off of games and everything there. But officially, you see it on your screen. Zack Baun with the shoulder did not practice. Mekhi Becton also with a concussion. And then Dallas Goedert, of course, the hamstring, and Byron Young, the hamstring. So 4 did not practice. But again, Zack Baun, the most, alarming, surprising, however you want to phrase that one there, he could still play because we saw Jalen Carter get a day off on a shoulder and he ended up being perfectly fine
Yeah.
against the Giants. But what do you make? It's a little concerning, but what do you make of the Zack Baun on the injury report?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's concerning just due to the fact that he is the better of the two linebackers. Nakobe Dean, first off, both the linebackers, I don't know if you agree with this, Josh, they have been the most hot and cold linebacker group in the entire NFL. Like the Packer game,
Yeah.
balling out of their mind. And then Zach Bond against, who was it, Atlanta the next week, very quiet, did nothing. And then the next week against the Saints, he was like all over the place. He's been like this. Now, it's a good ride because his low is not necessarily terribly low. Nakobe Dean's low is a little bit lower than Zach Bond's, but both of them have had really good games and some mediocre games. So if you're missing the really great version of Zach Bond versus Cincinnati Bengals, that's obviously more of a loss than the kind of mediocre version of Zach Bond. I think they really like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I know he's played exclusively at inside linebacker so far throughout training camp. He's listed as the backup inside linebacker. I'm sure they will prep him to be kind of the other guy that they roll out there. I don't know about Ben Van Sumer and your new fullback if he wants to have him out there. They
Hey
play a lot
now.
more dime. Maybe Sidney Brown is getting a little bit more looks. Overall, I don't think it's, the reason you would lose the Cincinnati Bengals, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And the Mekhi Becton thing too, not cleared on today's Wednesday. I'm blanking right now. Not cleared on a Wednesday is not necessarily that big of a deal. I'm leaning towards Becton probably sits, but that's just because Tyler Steen has been fantastic. If Mekhi Becton didn't
Hmm.
exist, we would all be raving about Tyler Steen having a fantastic season. He's looked really good filling in for Becton. There's been no slip up, no loss of pass rush blocking or or run blocking forward. He's been fine. So it's not the worst injury report in the entire world, but I do think that you would rather have a guy like a Zach Bond back versus Cincinnati because they're going to do a lot of screen passes, a lot of crossing routes to try to get Jamar Chase open. And their two-headed running back group, it's better than people realize. And so hopefully he's back. But Wednesday's always early, right, Josh? We've,
Hmm.
people have missed a lot of Wednesday practices this week and still played later on a Sunday. So I would say 40% level of concern that he doesn't play. 60% would say that he probably does.
Yeah, I would tend to agree because again, it is early, like you say, and you've got guys that we've seen on both cases, right? But
Yeah.
still, it's of the sense of, I mean, heck, we could pull up the injury report again, just for those that were curious on it or asking, but you've got a ton of individuals getting rest as well. I mean, Saquon Barkley,
A lot.
Brandon
Yep.
Graham, Darius Slay, Josh Sweat, all limited,
Yep.
but there's no injury designation based on a groin or hamstring like you're seeing there. It's just rest. So we don't mind that. That's never a bad thing. But hopefully, you can kind of see it slowly get better as the week goes on and the guys are all right. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's definitely a shout out to Nakobe Dean and both Zach Bond. But you're right on the like up and down, the hot and cold that we've seen.
Yeah.
But Nakobe Dean, I mean, as much as we've knocked him because it's hold him accountable, lots of missed tackles. He still missed a
Sure.
couple, sure, but he had a much better game against New
Very
York.
good game.
And if he can play at that level, even with a few missed tackles, it's similar to the argument of, hey, we just need this defense to be middle of the pack. We just need these
Yep.
linebackers to be fairly good. We don't need them to be all pros. They need to just be fairly good. And I think you saw, especially with what I loved probably the most was Fangio using the alignment of, hey, I'm going to blitz Nakobe Dean. I don't love the
I was about to
idea
say
of
that.
dropping back a pass rusher, but all things considered, you still only rush 4. It's just a weird way of doing it. But if it means that Nakobe Dean is not in coverage,
Yeah.
I'm all for it because we do not want to see Nakobe Dean in coverage. He was better. He was better in New York, but he was also limited. And so I
Sure.
think that Fangio and others, as we've talked about, is like, hey, maybe we don't put him in coverage too much. Maybe we try to hide him in that aspect. If Zach Bond gets dropped back in coverage a little more, fine. But I mean, 2 sacks. Nakobe Dean showed some athleticism, some physicality. He was good. I'm not saying he was incredible, but he was good.
Yeah, the blitzing of Nakobe Dean has been, I mean, incredible. I mean, he is blowing through the A gap of defenses and getting to the quarterback and finishing at the quarterback, which is something a lot of linebackers can sometimes miss on. You saw it happen on the reverse side with Jalen Hurts breaking a couple of tackles and having the big run on 3rd down and 7 versus the Giants. Fangio overall needs a lot of praise, Josh. And 5 minutes ago we said very wrong about where we were the first 4 weeks. Things have changed around. What Fangio has done extremely well the past 2 weeks is not be stuck in the whole it's my way or the highway. We're going to do things like my scheme is supposed to do things. He's adding a lot of wrinkles, and blitzing Nakobe Dean is definitely one of them. They played a lot more press coverage. They're playing still plenty of zone, but they're mixing in man as well. he's really trusting the secondary, and in trusting the secondary, a lot of the sacks that they had versus the New York Giants were kind of coverage sacks, right? I mean,
Hmm.
nothing against Dean or Sweat or Huff. They were getting to the quarterback for sure, but a lot of those was back goes Daniel Jones. He goes to his first read. He kind of has to, do a little hitch, step forward, and then the pressure came. I think that he's starting to realize, Fangio that is this secondary can hold their own. Quinion, Cooper DeJean has been unbelievable. We didn't even mention Cooper DeJean's name once
Yeah.
against the Giants because he basically didn't give up any catches, couple of yards overall. Like, he's been blanketing guys, and it's worked so well that he can kind of mix things up with the front four and the front seven. And I got to give the guy a lot of credit. I think this week, though, Josh, against Cincinnati is the true test because anytime I praise Vic Fangio and this team, really the past 2 weeks, it said, well, you played Deshaun Watson and you played Daniel Jones, which is fair, right? But we've said, Daniel Jones and that Giants offense, you go back the past couple of weeks, they beat Seattle on the road. That was a game that looked pretty good. I'm not saying they're great, but you get the point. If they put the clamps on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Josh, I might be bought all the way in on this defense. If they give up less than 24 points in a win and don't get shredded up and down the field, I might really start to buy in this defense because what I've seen the past 2 weeks is really, really good. And if they do it against if Quinion does it against Jamar Chase and they get a bunch of sacks on Joe Burrow, come on. I don't know. I don't know how you could not be bought all the way in if we see that on Sunday.
I'm with you. I mean, quite honestly, and I'm curious, people in the chat, let us know. Like,
yeah, I'm curious too.
Does it take that for you? Do you jump on board if the Eagles, and the defense, like Thomas is saying, the defense shuts down or just limits Cincinnati? And I'm also curious too in the chat, like what would you say is limiting? I mean, I get like the stance of, all right, hey, we're not expecting them to go another game without an offense. Like if it's a game of not an offensive touchdown, then oh my gosh, this is incredible. But like, as you said earlier, 20 points, somewhere in that range, I would take that. I mean, heck, I was trying to look at the overall schedule for Cincinnati, and obviously they had a little shaky start. We can nitpick it however you want to. You can make excuses. Ultimately, they put up 25 on Kansas City, which has been a good defense, 33 against Washington, 34 against Carolina, 38 against Baltimore.
A lot.
I mean, Cleveland, it was a iffy game last week. Same thing for New York. That was kind of a strange one. The Giants played well, a 17-7. So it's been a little up and down. But again, I mean, it goes back to your overall takeaway from it of like, no one's going to knock it and say, oh, you want to go against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? You want to match up with the guys and see if they could do something? Like, my takeaway or my thought from it, quite honestly, is one corner is, and I hope I'm wrong on this, but one corner is probably going to get exposed, whether that's Darius Slay or whether it's Quinion Mitchell. I could be wrong, and I hope
it's a big word, Josh.
I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm going to say that because I do believe that either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins is going to get his. Like they're good players for a reason, and so is Joe Burrow. So I'm excited to see it. But I think that the defense can cover up. No, because here's the thing. I'm excited to see the matchup, right? Because I want Darius Slay and Quinion Mitchell to prove it. But I'm going into it just ultimately thinking like, if and I hope that you're right, but if this defense comes away and we're like, man, hey, T. Higgins, 3 catches, like 40 yards, and Jamar Chase, 3 catches, 30, 40 yards, 50 yards, something like that, like not a 100-yard game or close to a 100-yard game and a touchdown, then I mean, all of a sudden we're going like, wow, this is not what I would have expected from this defense, because I think coming into it, as most of us were all in that same area, is like, hey, middle of the pack, that's what you need to be. Middle of the pack, we're going to be good. I don't know. We'll see. This will be one of the biggest tests offensively that the defense has gone up against. We saw what happened in Green Bay. Jaden Reed had a ridiculous game, and that's what I go back to. I know the field and all everything else, but like you have 2 good receivers and you have a good quarterback in Joe Burrow. Say what we will about Cincinnati.
It's fair.
They're hungry. They're trying to get back on track. They're a good team as well. So I'm interested to see how they play. By the way, I'll get to some of these super chats too, because I know we're going back and forth. Shout out to Anthony DeBona, the man himself, also saying good evening, everyone. Shout out to 2 of the best around. We appreciate that, Anthony. You are one of the best. Anthony will also be at the Commanders game, so talking about that, that'll be a blast. Daryl here with the 10 bomb. Appreciate that. Daryl said, look back at the film. They didn't start running outside zone until Steen was put in. I think, or he said, I like Becton, but I think Steen would have been the starter if he wasn't injured before the season started.
Yes. I mean, that's what they were trying to do during training camp. It was Steen until he had the ankle injury. I don't know about outside zone or not. I think Becton can move really well. It's kind of one of the reasons why he's such a freak, is he is very quick. Now, Steen's smaller and definitely faster, but I think maybe they just started to realize outside zone works pretty well, because there was a whole stat that they are the only team in the NFL that never runs the outside zone, and then Saquon hit on a bunch of outside zones against the Giants. So,
Yeah,
I again, I love to buy into the Eagles. I love when the Eagles are good, and I'm starting to buy back into them the past 2 weeks. My hope is that they're starting to kind of, get a little further into the Kellen Moore playbook, further into the Vic Fangio playbook. And this is just I had a comment basically say, Thomas, you said during the offseason it might take a couple of weeks, and this is just them taking a couple of weeks and then look good, which, I mean, they look pretty bad for a couple of these games. The Tampa game is an
for
awful
sure.
watch. If you go back and watch that, I mean, gee whiz. But I'm hopeful, so we'll see.
It's hard to be
Adon with
patient
the
at
10.
times.
It is hard to be patient, especially when they can't stop anybody in the Tampa game.
Sure.
Adon with the 10. Hey, Thomas and Josh, want to say thank you for all you do for the Birds. Your insight is amazing and cover. Appreciate that. That being said, I feel like we win 21-14, low-scoring affair. Love you, boys, and go Birds. Wow, I appreciate that a lot.
Go Birds.
21-14.
It might be Adam.
I
don't know if it's Adam or Adam, but
Oh, it's a good point. It might be Adam.
either way, we appreciate that, and go Birds.
Either way, I did see the comment. There's a couple below that I think go well with Adam's comment here, and saying that Burrow is going to throw very, very quickly like the Tampa Bay Bucks did. Let's hope they have an answer to that this time, because they, for whatever reason, decided that 3rd down and 2, they're going to play 10 yards off coverage, which is like the worst thing in the entire National Football League, and got shredded by Baker. Hopefully that's not the case. But I did see who was this? Oh, I just lost it. Where is it? Louise Harris, the last word. She's a regular on the channel. She says, since his offensive line is ranked 21st, we should put Burrow on his back. There's the hope. So,
yes,
I agree.
And he's going to hold on to the
high
ball.
Scoring. A little more than 21-14, but if we hold Joe Burrow to 14 points, goodness gracious, it's going to be a very fun day.
I would
Adam,
love to see it as well.
Also with the 5, I also think Q probably holds Chase and Higgins under 50. Slade's going to get cooked. I just don't have faith in him. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to care. I get that. I've been critical of Darius Slay. I think a lot of us have, Josh, but his numbers recently have been pretty good the past 2 weeks, again, against, bad quarterbacks. But I don't know if he doesn't care. I just think there's a little more me and a little less we when it comes to Slay. But not to the scale where he doesn't care. But
yeah,
I agree with that.
I mean, shout out to him. Like, he played much better. He locked down Malik Neighbors. So he was able to live up to expectations. I just think it's one of those, like, it's the National Football League, and ultimately, I'm sure probably 90% of the chat plays fantasy, right? Like, we play fantasy, so you go into a game, and as fans, as Eagles fans, I want T. Higgins and Jamar Chase to both be crap, and I want Joe Burrow to have a terrible day and all this stuff. But realistically, we still go into it and saying most likely one of those receivers is going to get theirs. And so I'm curious, who does that end up falling on? Is it Q? Does he make some mistakes? Does he have a rookie game? Or is it Slay? And we see kind of the trajectory or some issues that we've seen a little bit pop up here or there. But it'll be good. It'll be a good matchup, and I'm excited to see it. Also, Alex O did not miss your super chat. We're just late getting into it here, but appreciate the 2. Said Zadarius Smith or Clowney, more gettable trade targets, in my opinion.
Way more gettable. Yes.
I like those names.
That,
very much more realistic.
I had a list, and the list might be on tomorrow's show. A little subtle plug there. That yes, those are way more realistic names. Chase Young is another name who has looked awful this year, but he's another name that could be one of those 1-year rentals if you feel like he could make your pass rush better. Stay tuned for tomorrow's show. One little side note, Josh. I had this list for tonight's show, and I didn't know if we were going to be able to get to it, but I think this is kind of fun. Howie Roseman trade deadline. Thinking about what Howie Roseman has done at the trade deadline recently. I'll just give you some names here, just to think about this.
Okay.
Kevin Byard, who was awful, but now is pretty good with the Bears.
He's playing like an all-pro.
Robert Quinn, Robert Quinn's probably the worst one, even though he was a double-digit sack guy the year before, and then he was like basically unplayable in 2022. Jannard Avery, remember the Jannard Avery trade? A lot of people are comparing this deadline to like a Jannard Avery move, where it's like a, is it a good move, a bad move? Who really knows? Golden Tate, I forgot about the Golden Tate trade deadline move.
Yeah.
Who basically did nothing, but he did catch that go-ahead touchdown in the double doink wildcard game against the Bears. So, was he worth it or not?
Something.
And then you go back to 2017. This is from 2017 until now. Jay Ajayi was the only one that actually seemed to work. And even Ajayi, kind of in the playoffs didn't really get as many carries, especially the Super Bowl. Like Blunt was kind of more the workhorse there. Ajayi
True.
was great this year, but
Yeah.
Howie has not hit on a trade deadline trade. When was the last one? Ajayi in 2017, and even that is
Yeah.
not like he was the reason we won
Kind
a
of.
Super Bowl. He was very good, but
He
just to
was
say,
great in the game in Dallas, and I just remember
was
that because I was
great.
there in person, and
Oh,
it
yeah?
was just a glorious game. Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
the only game. I think it's the only game that Caleb went, my twin. So,
Did you
yeah,
see
he
on
was.
Twitter today? You mentioned that you had a twin because Chase Brown is the twin of Sidney Brown, which I actually didn't realize. It's kind of funny. They're like identical twins.
Yeah,
And
oh
people were
yeah,
like, "Josh Davis has a twin."
I
Josh
know.
Davis does
Some
have a
people,
twin.
yeah, some
When
people
are you
didn't
gonna get
realize
the
that.
twin
So,
on? One of these days, you
um,
need to just have him on the live instead of yourself and see if people recognize him.
see, that's
Although I will say you
actually.
guys are pretty easy to differentiate, if I do say so myself.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think probably most twins. I'm speaking for Sydney here. Maybe he feels differently, but I would imagine that he would also appreciate it if you can tell him and Chase Brown apart, right? Like if they were to line
See a
up.
picture of them.
They look fairly similar. It helps with the hair, like that had always been a thing, at least for a while at Illinois. But
These guys look no, they look
they're
way more twinny than you and your brother do.
see, I totally agree.
They're
Like
like
there's a lot more of
they're like
similarities there. So
twins. Yeah.
yes, yeah. But some
Although
people did not
again,
realize that. So
for people who didn't know Josh has a twin, you guys do look like twins. It's not like fraternal twins. You're just not like
right.
change shirts and I don't know who I'm talking to twins.
Well, and the thing is, and not to get too far off on a tangent, because probably no one really cares too much about this, but we don't know officially if we're identical or not. So that's the other
really?
part. Is like never. We were told fraternal, and then eventually, we're told that maybe we're not. I'll just throw it on the screen really quickly so people see it.
Oh
and then
wow,
we'll
you're
move
gonna
on.
do it? Okay.
I mean, I tweeted it, so it's easier to get to it. But
Okay.
there you go. For people that are curious, wondering, that is my twin
Come on.
on the right.
And they are both 6'4", for those wondering. They're massive.
So
it was like a Baylor intramural football and basketball juggernaut tandem.
it was pretty nice.
Not fair.
Yeah. I and I appreciate the comment. John M says, "Yeah, Josh is unique." Thank you, John. We are our own person. That's what twins are usually fighting with. It's like you try to establish your own identity and everything. Yeah, it depends on the lighting and hairstyle and everything else. Some of them look a lot more than others, but yeah, that's a pretty recent photo.
There you go.
From the CrossFit action. So anyway, but I do joke around. Caleb's been on one time, and it was for the Packers game because he's a Packers fan. But the running joke though is like he might, or he could definitely come on and do what I do. Who knows to like, I guess what level, but he could definitely do it and no one would die. If I were to try to do his job, someone would die because he's an orthopedic surgeon. So
that's right.
We'll see. Maybe one of these days we'll get him back on. But really here, appreciate the 5 as we're getting back on track. We appreciate
we're back on track.
Says Thomas, I'm good with you if we look good. Or I'm with you. I'm sorry. I'm with you if we look good defensively against them. I'll be bought back in. And can we score in the first quarter, please? Yes.
Oh my gosh.
That's
a
continual.
Yeah.
I mean, it just almost makes no sense.
I think we both said this in our shows, but I have no problem with sitting here in front of an audience of 759 people, which is not that many, but it's, more than some people have. So, we got to appreciate everyone being here. Not like I'm talking to 50,000 right now, but Jalen Hurts has regressed, and Jalen Hurts is a big reason why this offense is not scoring in the first quarter. And that's what somebody who raved about Jalen Hurts' performance last week, 10 of 14, but the 10 was really good. I mean, he has been at times very good, Josh, but at the same time, there has been a regression, and I don't think he's seen the football field as clearly as he needs to, and I do think the offense is not dumbed down, because I don't think you have to dumb it down for Jalen Hurts, because he is a very smart guy and obviously puts the work in, but it's a little bit more vanilla than I think Kellen Moore would like, and I do think that Sirianni has a play in that, but I do wonder how much of the vanilla-y version of Kellen Moore's offense is the fact that they don't feel comfortable with Jalen Hurts, or Jalen Hurts doesn't feel comfortable with doing everything, because there were a couple of plays, really 2 main ones. I talked about them in my recap show, where Jalen is looking at a wide open Devontae Smith on a mesh concept on 3rd and 2 right before he hits the 4th and 3 to A.J. Brown. He's wide open, and he doesn't throw it. And then a couple drives later, Saquon Barkley wheel route out of the backfield. They're in the red zone. That is a super quick turn, look, throw, touchdown. He walks in untouched, and he doesn't throw it. And I just think I don't know if he's just not comfortable yet, if he's pressing a little bit, if he simply can't do it. I don't know. But the regression is there, and that's why they haven't scored in the first quarter. And that's not to say he's a bad quarterback. He can still be a top 15 quarterback. He can trend towards top 10, especially in the modern NFL in this league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has 8 interceptions this year, but that's why they are struggling. I would say it is more Jalen Hurts than any other player currently on the offense. But if they start to get it rolling, and they did against the New York Giants, whether it's Saquon heavy or A.J. Brown heavy or a mix of both, they can still be one of the top offenses in the National Football League, and they can still win a Super Bowl with him, and I still stand behind that.
I do agree with the point of, like, all he has to be is good. He doesn't have to be elite.
Yeah, sure.
The regression, and again, this is coming back to, I know it's kind of semantics of that sense and everything else. I don't know if I'm fully ready to say it's a full-blown regression because of it's a new coordinator. And I still, and let me maybe back up a second, because I get comments, I'm sure you've gotten some as well, and they're like, oh man, I love all these takes of saying like, this isn't Kellen Moore's offense and blah, blah, blah. You guys have no clue. It's like, look, ultimately we don't know for sure 100% of like how much percentage it is of Kellen Moore versus Nick Sirianni, but we had videos all throughout the summer breaking down his offense, all throughout training camp breaking down his offense. If you go and look and you listen to any knowledgeable talking head who's regularly doing this, like a Kurt Warner, like a Dan Orlovsky, like whoever you talk about, it's not his offense. Like you look at the route trees, it's not his offense. It's not 100%. Now it may be 50%, it may be 60%. Who knows?
Yeah.
But as we looked at in the early part of the season, we look at training camp and hear the reports of, okay, hey, Jalen Hurts throwing over the middle, throwing very quickly, decisively. The offense is using tons of motion and under center and play action. Like we were told, and I think Jalen's quote was something to the effect of, or maybe someone put it out there, like 95% new, right? Like, so
new. Yeah.
That was the thought, is we're going into here saying, oh my gosh, like this is going to be a complete overhaul. And okay, we didn't, I don't think that you did like buy in completely and say, oh, it's going to be that drastic. But still, even to make that comment was like, great. The more that we have differences and get away from the Sirianni offense would be a good thing. And so that's where I'm like trying to wrestle with this thing of say, okay, how much is it with a Kellen Moore? How much is it Sirianni stepping in? Because he did make the case of saying, or in the latest presser, like, big plays, explosive plays. We need to hunt for those. And I'm like, man, I like explosive plays. Everyone does. But is that a formula? Is that a recipe for success to say we want to be at the very top in explosive plays? Or like, how about they just come to you? Like you just happen to get an explosive play because it happens. And so I don't know. That's where, yes, Jalen needs to be better. I'm not saying that. Like Jalen does need to be better. But I'm still hesitant. Like I want to see a few more weeks before I totally go in and say, all right, you know what, fine. He's totally regressing, because if we come away from Cincinnati game and then we go into the next against Jacksonville, and we have multiple games of Jalen Hurts not turning the football over and he's starting to look better, then okay, you know what? Maybe we have something where he's turning a corner, he's getting some confidence, but I still want to see it of more of a Kellen Moore offense. The last thing that I'll throw out here, and this is just analytics-wise, because I know the stats can tell any sort of story. It's you take it with a grain of salt. But if I can get this full graphic on screen, I think I can. This was a graphic. Shout out to the Junior Fort Gang, who does a lot of the PFF breakdowns and analytics on Twitter. But this is a graphic of quarterbacks from a clean pocket.
I saw this today.
Yeah, so a clean pocket percentage and clean pocket EPA. And so basically the graph there that you see is Jalen Hurts is getting a below average clean pocket percentage. So he doesn't have it as often as the average quarterback, yet he is far and away the highest based on efficiency when he gets a clean pocket and throwing. So still, we can take it with a grain of salt because we can have all sorts of metrics in there and all sorts of disclaimers and outliers and all this other stuff. But I think when you look at that, you say, can the Eagles give Jalen Hurts a clean pocket? Because pass protection's not been as good as it has been previously. I think we would admit that. Run blocking's been great, but we've had Fred Johnson have to get in there and did not play well at all whenever he was playing right tackle. He played better as a left tackle, but we've had some injuries on the offensive line, and I think you're seeing some of that. And then also, I don't know how much this attributes to Jalen bailing early, because he still bails early too much. He doesn't step up in the pocket when he needs to. So it's still take it with a grain of salt, but I see that and go, there's some potential there. I don't know to what extent, but there's some potential there if the pass protection's on that side and if Jalen can continue to look over the middle of the field, assuming that we'll also call that. So I don't know, for what it's worth.
I totally agree. And, give him a couple more weeks. If he plays great and it really stays turnover free. If he stays turnover free, we basically win every single game. Every single game Jalen Hurts is
Hmm.
turnover free. The Eagles look and feel and just cruise. It seems like A.J. Brown is hitting on all cylinders. They run the football very well. They're not backed up in terms of switching field position. So if he keeps that going, then again, he doesn't have to be the fifth best quarterback in the National Football League. He doesn't be Lamar Jackson. He can be the eighth best quarterback in the league, which is very possible because again, the quarterback play this year it's not been that great. We're not watching somebody just dominate out of their minds over the course of the first 6 weeks. So not a problem. It should be fine.
It's a running back league. It's weird. It's like
it is this
running the
this
football
year
has turned into like if you have Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, your fantasy league's probably doing a little bit better than most. It's strange, but we continue to see that. Daryl here with a 10, actually. Appreciate Daryl. Another 10. It says Jalen notice Devontae Smith. I believe that's DS. I believe it's Devontae Smith wide open, but a defender came rushing past him. And if you remember in the Tampa game, he went to throw the ball and it was a turnover. I think he's trying to protect the ball more.
Maybe.
I think he missed it. I would say he missed it. It's fair point of yes, he's being more cautious. I can't remember the exact play where it was, but I'm sure that most of us remember it whenever he just fell down, like he took the sack before he got hit.
Yes.
Jalen does not do that. Jalen does not do that before the bye week. Like I think that's an extra emphasis. Hey, if you're feeling pressure, don't make a play too much. Like just go down. We'll just live to fight another day because Jalen normally would try to take off and hey, maybe he fumbles. Okay. But he just went ahead and fell down. And similar there, maybe he did. Maybe he saw, all right, there's a little bit of pressure. There's a little bit of situation. Maybe could end up being a turnover. And so he's hesitant with it. I don't know. It goes back and forth because he did seem to stare down, I believe it was Kenny G on the wheel route for forever. And if he had come off of Kenny just a little quicker, Devontae's literally sitting there going like, hey, what the heck? Like I'm wide open. So you get the first down.
Think I took him in my underdog, now a channel sponsor, by the way. Shout out to Josh's underdog, myself as well. I took Devontae Smith to score a touchdown this week because it feels like there's going to be a heavy emphasis on Devontae Smith after one target, against the New York Giants. So that's a little freebie if you want it out there. I think it's pretty much guaranteed. So
I do like that.
Let's see. Other people talking here. I saw one earlier that I really liked. Outside the first quarter, we're ranked as top 5 offense. That's true. First quarter, they're like 32nd, obviously, in scoring because they haven't scored. And then I think they're third. And the final 3 quarters or top 5 or whatever the number is. I just saw that on Twitter, but I forgot about it. So,
I feel like I've seen some sort of stat about it. I mean,
we're
obviously,
very
that's
good.
Like
very
we can eventually. It takes forever, but then we get going. The total, by the way, because I was interested on the spread, it was 1.5 was the underdog initially. Eagles are 2.5 point underdogs.
2.5 point underdogs. Really?
Yeah, now they're 2.5. And the total is 47.5. So
yeah,
I mean, you expect a little higher scoring. You could get a, like a what would that be? Somewhere around the 27, 24 ish. Yeah. You hit the over, something like that.
What's the most interesting thing about the Bengals this week, Josh? We're coming off of we had a loss or a bye week, I guess, but a loss before the bye week, and then we obviously have the bye week. Mm-hmm. And we played the Browns and then the Giants, and it's like back-to-back wins. Are the Eagles back? Are we buying back in? Cincinnati lost to Baltimore in that kind of like nail-biting 41-38 where the defense got shredded. Then they played the Giants on the road and the Browns, and they beat both of them kind of okay. I mean, 17-7 against the Giants, 21-14 versus the Browns. We're coming off of the same 2 opponents the past 2 weeks, and Cincinnati's in the exact same boat. Is Cincinnati back? Are they going to go on the Joe Burrow November run? It's going to be very interesting as an immovable object kind of meets a, whatever the other term is, the force you can't stop or whatever, however that goes.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
An unstoppable force.
There it is. I mean, and Cincinnati's better than what people, because I remember early in the season, people were like, oh man, we shouldn't be able to, but they're Cincinnati's a little bit better. They're improving. They have a lot to play for. Shout out to J62 Moon with a 2 saying Cincinnati is playing for their season on Sunday. Yeah. They got a lot to play for, and there's an extra emphasis. They take a look at the league and say, okay, Baltimore, I mean, they're legit. Everyone sees that. But if they want to try to make a move, okay, build some momentum, get these wins strung together, could be 500. Also, Eagle One was asking, is Underdog Florida friendly? It is. You can do the pick 'em.
It is
in Florida.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
Feel free.
That's why I use it. It's Atlanta and Texas friendly too. That's why we use it.
There you go. Yes.
It's fun.
So
Fun times.
it's good. I think that I'm gonna have to go with a. I mean, the more that I think about it is because they have a lot of props for like sacks and everything else too.
Oh yeah.
But somebody made the comment earlier of like, the defensive or the offensive line of Cincinnati being 21st, and Joe Burrow holds onto the ball typically a little
He
longer.
does.
Now, to be
He
interesting,
does.
do they change up the game plan? Do they have a little bit quicker
Yeah.
throws? But if it's the standard Cincinnati offense, I'm kind of thinking to go with one of the sack totals there. Like usually you
Okay.
can pick like an individual player, and this past game it was actually a multiplier for Bryce Huff. I don't know if I'd go Bryce Huff, but Jalen Carter, he got 2 already. You kind of
Yeah.
see the bread man like getting going now. That
Warming
feels
up.
like a pretty good. So you pair that one with the maybe a Smitty touchdown, and then you have to pick a player from the opposing team. So I don't know. We have to
I'm
figure out where we're gonna
I'm
go
going
with.
with Burrow under 255 passing yards. I think, going back to the
Okay.
whole Quinion play, one of them getting exposed. I think Chase could have 100 yards, Josh, but it might be like a 60-yard play and then like 4 more catches for 40, right? He's not like he's dominating. He has one kind of big catch, and then that's basically it. Eh, I think Q's ready. I have fully bought into
Yeah.
Quinion Mitchell. I think
Yeah.
Quinion Mitchell is. I was always jealous of Denver when they got Patrick Surtain. Like I love Surtain coming out of the draft. I really thought he was going to be a great cornerback. He's been better than even I really thought coming out of Alabama. But just the idea of having a Patrick Surtain is so exciting for any sort of defense because he just shuts down your opposing team's best player. And will Quinion be Patrick Surtain? I don't know. It's definitely too early. He could, get torched on Sunday versus Jamar Chase. But it
True.
feels like we have the closest we've ever really had to like that shutdown superstar, no nonsense cornerback that you just don't even throw at. I mean, they're barely
No.
throwing at Quinion Mitchell the past couple of weeks. They kind of test him once or twice, and that deep ball against the Giants where he basically ran the route from Malik Neighbors was basically it. It was like, okay,
Hmm.
it's not going to work. We'll kind of just, throw to this side of the football field. And so I'm pumped.
Yeah.
That really is the marquee matchup. It is probably one of the best matchups of the entire football Sunday coming up is watching the rookie go against and Chase is, different than AJ Brown. He's like Smitty, but bigger, right? He runs routes really well. He's extremely quick, but he's not as
Hmm.
small as Devontae Smith is. It's going to be crazy. And I think that we just have to sit back and understand. I thought about this yesterday. We don't realize what it's like coming into the league as a top prospect at cornerback and then being baptized by fire every single day by AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and what that does for your career. I think that it is
Oh yeah.
like, I mean, if he would have rolled in here and been on any other football team going against their wide receivers on any given day, right? It's like, okay, we're playing against
Hmm.
NFL talent, but you're not playing against the NFL talent. AJ Brown's the best receiver in football, and he went one-on-one every single day for 3, 4, 5 weeks during training camp. The things it does for a young player, I think, is unbelievable, and we're going to look back on Q's career and be like, this was one of the reasons why, because he got baptized by the best and is now playing against seemingly second-rate players who are still really great each and every week on other teams.
I mean, I don't want to call it too soon either. So I do appreciate the stance of like a
Sure,
Patrick Surtain, but at the same time, and I
sure.
play the clip here of, the Malik Neighbors where he goes ahead and hits him and the play's going the completely other way. Like he's just got that dog in him. Like Quinion Mitchell is what we anticipate or what we wanted him to be, the expectation. And it's very early. I know that. So we're not like trying to jinx anything, but like he has that ability that we've continued to see. And now he's got a little bit. We hope to continue to build on that. But he's got a little bit of tape out there of like, okay, these are some good players that he shut down, and he's had a ridiculous passer rating against in a really good way. Pass breakups. He's going to continue to get tested because he's a rookie. But I'm right there with you. Yes, like I want to see him continue to own up to the challenge every single week. And another thing too that I don't think he gets enough credit. Like we talk about him some, but Christian Parker. Like
Oh yeah,
his
that's a great point.
because we say like Patrick Surtain, but the similarities there, or at least the ability to get him to that level is, I mean, almost identical because you've got a Vic
Yeah,
Fangio and you've got a Christian Parker, and Christian Parker was able to take Patrick Surtain. Not that he wasn't great coming into the league, but just help him continue to develop in the NFL game. And so, same deal. Like when you draft a Quinion Mitchell, when you draft a Cooper DeJean, it's no coincidence why these guys are ready and they're coming in and
yeah,
making an impact very soon because of Christian Parker. So I think he deserves a lot of credit.
sure.
Again, I think we just see the different mentality that Q has on the field. So hopefully he brings it because he's going to get a lot of jawing probably. I mean, Jamar Chase, he'll let him hear it. A lot of emotion on the field as well. So I don't know. I mean, Hannah here with a 2. Appreciate that. Said coming out scoring in the first quarter is the key, beating the Bengals.
Can you imagine?
Ultimately,
Can you imagine
yes.
7-0
Start
with
out
8 minutes
soon.
to go in the first? That'd be crazy.
I
That'd
can't
be
imagine.
crazy.
I can't imagine any points, honestly, in the first quarter yet. Like we keep saying it, but at
Yeah,
this point, like I need to see it now. Otherwise, I'm gonna be
I
like,
know.
no, it sounds good, but until they prove me otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Shane
Philip
L.
Teese,
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Shane L was asking a question earlier. I wanted to make sure. Was just asking, what's up with Moro Ojomo? Is he getting playing time or is he hurt?
What?
Um,
He's getting playing time.
he is getting playing time. Yes, I've
He's
got
great.
the snap counts here as well, just for
Yeah, what's his percentage?
wondering. He got 22 snaps in the last game, which was 38%. And again, it was a blowout. It was
Yeah,
late.
that's true
They
too.
took him
That's
out
true too.
to Jordan Davis. I mean, just to compare. So Moro Ojomo got 22. Jordan Davis got 12. So
Wow.
I mean,
12.
he's getting a lot more.
Whew. I didn't know it was
Yes, he
that
is
bad.
playing.
But then thinking back to like the game, he was never in there. Like you just never really saw him. Wow. Morrow
Hmm.
has been a massive bright spot, Josh. A massive bright spot. I had no idea that he was going to be this good. I interviewed him during the offseason. It was like, hey, do you want to interview Moro Jomo? Obviously, I was going to say yes because he's an Eagles player. But when you're
Heck yeah.
interviewing the guy, you're like, okay, you're a late round draft pick. You did nothing your rookie year. What's different? And he kept telling me like it's clicked, right? It's clicked. I figured it out. It's like, okay, let's see what happens. And oh my gosh, has it clicked? And he looks like Jalen Carter light. Like he's doing the same exact
Yeah.
kind of power rush moves where he's shoving people out of the way. He's getting the quarterback insanely fast. And we don't realize again what that does for the second team pass rush unit when Carter is out, right? Because they do a lot of Morrow for Carter swaps. Sometimes they play together, but a lot of times it's Milton and Carter or Morrow and Milton, and they're kind of move people around because they rotate the defensive line. But that still have interior pressure when it's BG and Nolan Smith has helped BG and Nolan Smith out a ton. And is a big reason why Nolan Smith has been so successful the past 2 weeks because quarterbacks can't step up as Nolan comes around the edge because there's Moro Jomo right in front. He's been,
Hmm.
and he costs like $5 a game. I mean, he's so cheap because he's such a late round draft pick. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable what he's been able to do. Massive, massive props to Moro Jomo. The rest of the NFL has no clue who he is. But as an Eagle fan, you got to understand that this guy is really good.
Oh yeah,
Really,
definitely.
really good.
Yeah, there's a and I was playing the clip of similarities to Jalen Carter, like we talk about.
Yeah.
There's another graph. Let me see if I can find it. I used it on the last.
I saw
video.
that graph. Yep.
I might be able to. Oh, here we go. Yes. So this one is, and again, you take every one of them with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I think that whenever the graph has Chris Jones as the leading person on this, it probably means a little bit more because everyone understands how good Chris Jones is. But evaluating interior pass rushers, so again, very top, there's Chris Jones. You want to be towards the top right because it's expected average pass rush grade, and then the difficulty, or excuse me, you want to be just up high. Like where you're at, left and right doesn't necessarily matter because that's based on what they think you're to do. You just want to be up high in the graph.
Right.
So if you look at that, Chris Jones, yes, he's in his own league. Okay, fine.
It's pretty good.
But I mean, there's Jalen Carter and Moro Jomo.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't say, I mean, right here, here's Jalen Carter, Moro Jomo.
Crazy.
When we talk about a team with 2 defensive tackles, 2 interior D linemen, they're right there. I mean, shout out to Pittsburgh. They had Cameron Hayward and Keanu Benton. But no one, or very little, I think, expected going into this season to say, this is where Moro Jomo would be grading. This is what Moro Jomo would be doing. But Jalen Carter, he talked about it in training camp. And like you said, in your interview, you got a chance to break it down more with him. Moro felt like he was going to have that type of year, felt confident to be able to come in and make an impact. But, I mean, heck, anytime you can get a production like that from your 7th round pick, like anybody will take it. And it's still very early. So, yeah, to the question again, just Shane asking, is Morrow getting snaps? Is Big Mo out there? He is. I would anticipate as he continues to, I assume, play like this, he might become, heck, he could even get a starting job. As crazy that sounds, like JD unfortunately trending downward, and Big Mo is skyrocketing.
Yeah, and it's a bummer for JD. The reason why we haven't talked about it a lot the past 2 weeks because the D line besides him is playing really well. The D line was still getting shredded. The Jordan Davis conversation would be definitely being had 12 snaps is ridiculous. I mean, that is so low against the New York Giants. But hey,
somebody's
winning.
asking.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say somebody was asking where's Jordan Davis. Yeah, I'll help you out. There's JD. I'm moving
Oh,
left,
is he on the thing?
and he is on the thing. Yeah, so there's JD. So
Yo.
this is incredibly low amount of expectation for him because the further left you are is the less expected. So he's not expected
Man.
for that much anyway, and he's slightly below what his grade over expectation would be. So it's not very good. I mean, you can see Milton Williams. Milton Williams is up here. It's solid. It's not anything crazy, but it's solid. But yes, JD is definitely going
He's a
backwards.
rotational defensive tackle at this point, and which is fine if he would have been the 58th overall draft pick, but being the 12th, that's where the problem lies. But maybe he gets better. Who knows? I mean, you never know. Milt Williams has been up and down. He's playing a lot better right now. Morris Jomo was, nothing last year, and now he's doing some good stuff. So, don't want to harp on the guys, but it'll be interesting. Jokes Hunt intrigues me the most, says Forte. Yeah, I think he is one of those guys that's starting to earn some reps. You can clearly tell, Josh, in a Fangio defense, you got to earn your reps. It's not just like, you're a third-round draft pick, so get out there, kid. It's like, okay, third-round draft pick, you've finally proven. Same went for Cooper DeJean. I mean, Cooper DeJean was always going to be better than Avonte Maddox, and it took so long, so many practice reps to make sure he was ready to go. Now you're in there. Now you're good to go, right? So I think Hunt is starting to get his workload. You'll see it increase over the coming weeks and hopefully the coming months. But I'm intrigued as well. And again, very hard on this defensive line the first couple of weeks because they were very bad. But they're starting to get more comfortable and they're starting to look better, and that's a good sign for all of us, I'd say.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And again, we would. It's a fair point to also throw out there because we're not knocking JD in the sense of like, okay, he's expected to be a ridiculous pass rusher as non-delusional Eagles fan says. Remember, Davis is a nose tackle, not supposed to.
Very true.
Not
Very
supposed
true.
to get a lot of sacks. It's fair, but
Yeah.
When you draft a first round, nose tackle, you would expect that they'd have a little bit more production, maybe a little bit more snaps than 12, because the counter argument could be like, and I know I'm like picking the top of the top, but like who's leading the league in sacks right now? It's a nose tackle. Like Dexter Lawrence is leading the league.
He's got like
sacks.
9.
He's got 9. So I'm not saying JD could or should be there. It'd be fantastic if at some point he ever was, but just a little bit more production. You draft him for that reason.
Yeah.
Probably won't see it. Hopefully we do, but it does not appear that we will. Howie Roseman, even whenever he did the 2 years ago, he's at the Super Bowl doing the interview with Jason Kelsey and talking about just his methods for drafting and why he drafted JD. And, hey, we see a guy here, why can't he do that? Why can't he do both? If 3 years ago you'd had a guy like that, he would have automatically been in the top 5, and it's like, so they felt like they got a steal. Well, so far it hasn't lived up, but again, there's some time for
plenty of time.
Some draft picks and others that's like, maybe it doesn't work out. But if Big Mo hits, then it's like, okay, maybe one miss, but then if Moro Joma makes up for it, 7th round pick, it's not so bad. Hannah with a 5 saying random fact: Eagles have never won a game in Cincy.
4-1.
It's
right?
It's about to change. Also, Q talking smack. I'm gonna censor that. Chase is how to get off. Chase is how to get him off his game. Yeah. So talking some smack is definitely getting him off his game.
Bengals game. Was the last Bengals game? No, it wasn't the McNabb. Didn't know it was overtime. Didn't we have one after that? I gotta look. I'm curious.
The last Bengals game was in the COVID year, wasn't it? What?
Yeah, you're right. 2020.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what is this ad block? This is ridiculous. Take ad block off, please. I gotta be able to see. 2020. We that was actually an overtime tie. Was it really? I have no memory of that game.
Yeah, that was a very strange year. So I don't remember a lot of like details about that one.
And then 2016 we got murdered at Cincinnati 32-14. 2012 we got murdered in Philadelphia 34-13. 08 that was the McNabb tie 13 apiece, and then 05 we lost 38-10. So, yeah, we're not very good against the Bengals historically. I have no memory of that. I gotta go back and watch the 2020 tape. It must have been Carson Wentz doing Carson Wentz things, but I that's completely gone from my memory.
Yeah. 225, 1 touchdown, 2 picks for Carson in that game.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
I mean, Good for
Jeez.
him. By the way, we did not score in the first quarter in that game either.
Hey.
So if you believe in bucking the trend, maybe this is the week. Do you take a
think
first
so?
quarter?
Honestly,
Do you take a
would
first
you bet
quarter
money?
prop?
Would you bet money
I
on
would at
them
this
scoring the first
point.
quarter?
Yeah, just
You
me
would?
being
Yeah.
they're
Needs to
due,
happen.
and I know that's a terrible
That's
it's
bad
not a
betting
good
strategy,
method
but
for
sure.
betting. I understand that, but they are so due at this point. The fact that
Yeah.
it hasn't happened already is ridiculous. But Cincinnati, they're a difficult team. They're going to be a good opponent, but defensively. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with this, but defensively, they don't scare you near as much as you say, okay, can we
Right.
stop their offense? You should be able to move the football against
Right.
Cincinnati. And heck, even if it's a field goal, even if it is Jake Elliott kicking a 50-yard
all it
attempt to make it
all it
there
takes.
and get on the board, please, I think that we can finally score in the first quarter.
There you go. Q pick 6. Excuse me. In the first quarter says Mike. We take that. Flight Parks, Q lockdown chase. Watch for a DeJean INT. People are not throwing at Cooper DeJean. I mean, very little. I know they're playing a lot of zone, but very little people are really kind of trying to single out DeJean. He's been pretty good. Let's see. Philly, the COVID year, it was a tie. Okay, yeah, I just gotta go back and watch that film. I gotta see exactly what happened. But let's go and wrap up with maybe score prediction, Josh. Have you figured out a score prediction yet as we get approach our hour of time?
That works for me. Yeah, sure. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've given. Gosh, I know we haven't won, but as Hannah said, it's about to change.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we could do it. It's gonna be really difficult. The fact that we're not favored in that one, and the line is moving in that direction of now 2.5 point underdogs, I'm like, yeah, I don't really love that, but I'm gonna say Eagles win. The total's 47.5. I'm gonna say it's over. So, do we score 30? Can we finally get 30 again?
Jeez. It's a big number.
Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe 27 to 27-24. I'll say 27-24 Eagles.
I'll go 23-17. A couple a lot more Jake Elliott field goals in this one. 23-17.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go with the under. I think it's going to be a little bit more low scoring. If they can win this game and look good doing it, Josh, if they can just take what they did against the Giants and just duplicate it and give up, 2 more touchdowns and still win, 28-14, whatever the number is, oh man, people are going to be feeling pretty good. And then as we talk about the rest of the schedule, as you start to kind of get into the month of November, Jaguars, Dallas, Commanders game we're going to be at, Rams. I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
There's
could
a lot
be.
to like.
I do think it could be really fun, Josh. It'd be a really good time. So
Yep.
I'm all for having a good time.
Yeah, if we can get that win, like you said. It's Jacksonville. Dallas doesn't scare anybody. Even at Dallas, hey, all right, fine.
Yeah.
But there's a couple games in there, but there's also a couple of those that you gotta love. You gotta love the matchup. So get some momentum, keep it rolling. I love that. But seeing a lot of other score predictions as well. 31-24 from Fitness Roofer. 31-27 from Daniel. 31-24 K-Dude. 31-27 Ryan Solomon. Draft Junkie 35-17. 31-27.
A lot of 30s.
Tons of 30. I don't know that I've seen hardly any
Everybody
in the 20s yet. 41-33. See one of those from Jesse. Yeah, lots of those on that side. Also, got a couple super chats here. John, let's go. Appreciate that. John says with a 20 bomb here. Now you can bet my money. Go Birds.
Wow.
I mean, appreciate that.
But I have to now, right?
I mean, I feel like I'm going to probably lose that one, but I do appreciate it. Thank you,
never know.
John. It's my luck recently has not been great, so that's why maybe I should pick the Eagles to lose and then we'll win because that's just me throwing money away. But
not a bad idea.
Still appreciate that. Also, Mark Cooper with a 10 saying, I feel bad for Kellen Moore. He's dialing up plays with wide open receivers and Hurts is holding onto the ball too long and missing his windows.
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, well.
Yeah. I did think it was a little bit interesting with Sirianni's comment in the press conference. He doesn't normally say anything at all or anything of value because he's going to, give a word salad and we don't know what anything means. But he actually, for once, he said sometimes, and I was like, hey, look, even for him to say sometimes, he was like, sometimes it's your routes that you call and the plays that you call are dictated based on personnel. And he didn't say specifically who that was, but I'm like, I know exactly. There's not any way to spin that. And so I was just saying, if Sirianni makes that comment there, We haven't heard it before. I'm not starting anything up extra. I'm not making a video saying
No.
like, they're going at each other. But it's just like interesting
that.
to me where, okay, Sirianni usually always is not making a single case in point. And, as Mark is saying here, as we were talking about earlier, Jalen does need to be better. He's got to be quicker at processing. But, it's still early. He could improve. They be confident in that. Shane with the 5 also says, Josh, I'll be at the Eagles Steelers game on the 15th and Eagles Cowgirls game on the 29th. And then also asking, are you going to be at either of those? So not the Steelers one. Maybe the Dallas one, maybe.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Which one? In Philly?
In Philly, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be December 29th. Yeah.
We might hit that one. Yeah.
I don't think the Steelers game will work, but
we're obviously going to be at the Commander game. We're going to give more details on the tailgate that we're going to be at. If you guys want to come by and say hi, I'm pretty sure we're linking with Justin Pugh on Thursday night, the former Giant tackle, and he's got a camera crew, and we'll be rolling around with him. So if you see people with cameras, we're probably in that mix. And so a lot of chances to find us while we're running around the Eagle Stadium. So we'll let you know more details as we get them. But we're going to be running around there. It's going to be a bunch of fun.
Those should be some really good games, too. Obviously, the Kelly Green game in Philly against Dallas, but Pittsburgh's
pretty good.
They're no joke, especially Russell Wilson. Hey, he makes their offense better. Justin Fields is playing good enough, but you could tell George Pickens and the other guys, they appreciate maybe a little bit better a quarterback who can throw the football a bit. Couple more super chats before we wrap up and get to these a little bit late. We had some last minute at the buzzer as there's a lot of score predictions and everything else. But Hannah with a 5, Bengals are ranked 21st for average pass yards allowed, among the worst. So among the worst. So run the ball, let 26 eat.
Okay.
Bengals are 21st for average pass yards allowed. I'm trying to.
We're confused.
Yeah. I still want to run the football, but I'm trying to put those two together. If they're 21st and they're not that great, we could throw. Maybe you just run first and then set up the pass. Either way, yes, please don't abandon the run. Don't get pass happy or, flip to the other side because this pass game was like, oh, we ran too much, so now we're going to throw. But we'll see. The Shane with a 5. 28-20 is the score prediction. Says Saquon with another 100+ yards and Smitty with 2 tutties and Cooper gets his first pick. Okay. We would all love that.
Fan favorite Cooper DeJean, man. People love them some Cooper DeJean. I don't blame them.
You would hit your underdog. You'd get your Smitty touchdown. 2 of them, in fact. So, we would take that. But
I want to meet Cooper DeJean. I think he'd be super cool. They'd be really, really fun to hang out with. It'd be weird because he's like really young too. It'd be like a little brother, but like a really cool little brother because he's like in the NFL and stuff.
You forget how young they are. Like
right, or how old we are now.
That's true. Yeah, it's just like okay,
gracious. Yeah. I'm dead.
You're young though. You're really young. Okay. You got plenty of time before you go over the hill. I say that
over the
hill. Now that I'm 32. So anyway, we appreciate you guys. That'll probably wrap it for us. This was a blast as always. Thomas, I appreciate you being patient with me.
No problem.
Super late. Oh, Daz at the buzzer. Siaki Ika, just a quick shout out because we got the
Baylor
defensive tackle signed to the practice squad. So
Siaki Ika.
There you go. We love that guy.
We'll see what he does. But he was good at Baylor, and we like Baylor. So
yes,
good signing.
So if we talk about practice squad interior defensive lineman, it's Baylor.
Hey, it's all Baylor.
It's the Philly Bears, so look out now. But it was a blast. We appreciate it. If not, make sure to use the Philly special code for Underdog. Your pick'em is there. NBA season tipped off, so get in on that. There's 20% bonus for all picks until the end of the month, I believe. So make sure to take advantage. But we will have more videos to come, obviously hanging out for the stream on Sunday, which a reminder as well, got flexed. So it is an earlier game. If you're not remembering, it is, a 1 p.m. start on the East Coast. But until then, for Thomas Mott, I'm Josh Davis. This has been I was going to say Philly link. It is the Philly link for our shirts, but it's the Wednesday link.
That's right.
Appreciate you guys. Till next time.
See you guys. Go Birds.
Go Birds.